Hi everyone, Kara Hienik here to present you the case study about the student Laura B. And this involved the Pleasant Valley Community School District along with the Mississippi Bend Area Education Agency. So we're going to start way back at kindergarten just to give you a little bit of background in her early educational experiences. Laura was served in the regular classroom for all the way up to 8th grade. She was considered bright, able to do her required work, no red flags ever being raised. Her basic skills were always above the 50th percentile, and times she was scoring in the 90th percentile. However, from a very young age, she was receiving private counseling independently outside of the school scenario or school setting. So 9th grade is kind of where things start to get interesting, and it didn't start until second semester when parents started to raise some concerns about having low grades and having some behavior scenarios happening at home and seeing some at school. Her basic skill scores dropped to 34, and she often told her parents that she hated school and was not going back the next day. Now, starting March 29th, I kind of have a timeline here. It makes it a little bit easier to see kind of the progression of events. But really starting March 29th of 1995 is when some major behavior started to occur. On this day, Laura attempted to overdose on Tylenol. This was at home. When her mother confronted her, she then assaulted her mother, and this resulted in a 2-day hospitalization for mental health. She was then prescribed psychotropic medication, and then the hospital did notify the counselor of the instruction that Laura received at the hospital. In April, almost immediately following that incident, she received a 3-day suspension due to some attendance infractions. And there wasn't much after that until May. In May, things got a little chaotic in that there was initially an incident involving some missing money at home that her parents had contacted the school believing that she had brought it to school. When she was confronted by the school administration, she began to become somewhat hostile. When the parents were contacted regarding this, they had asked the school to contact the police and remove Laura. She then again was admitted to the hospital for threatening her parents during this time. Immediately after she was discharged from the hospital, she was suspended for another day due to an altercation with another student at school. And then after that, towards the end of the school year, the teachers did have a meeting regarding Laura and how they were going to help her transition into 10th grade, and to see if she was even going to pass this end of this semester. And it was determined that it wasn't looking hopeful, that they didn't believe she was going to pass the majority of her classes. However, no referral or alarm for special education was made during this time. So now let's roll into 10th grade. Start of the school year, September 25th, she was admitted to the hospital again for 4 days. It came to the attention that she tried to overdose on Tylenol while she was at school. This was reported by the nurse, and she contacted parents, and which resulted in the hospitalization. If we fast forward to January and March, kind of a summary of what happened during those months is due to behaviors and attendance issues, she accumulated 8 total suspensions. Some of those, the rationale was because of alcohol on campus, attendance, behaviors, and then drug and alcohol possession at school. On March 16th of that year, so almost a year since initial behaviors had begun, she was admitted to the hospital again, and this time it was an incident involving guns and threats towards her parents at home. go to April, in the month of April, what happened was she tried to overdose again on 3 occasions. At this point, she was now diagnosed with a major depressive disorder with possible psychotic features. To this point, she really didn't have much of a diagnosis. And then she was placed in the Mount Pleasant Mental Health Institute. And during this time, she also, over that summer, went to some out-of-state residential programs. So at this time, over the summer, Mount Pleasant was, or Pleasant Valley, was trying to collaborate and see what they could do potentially to transition her into the next school year. During this time, the parents then enrolled her in Bettendorf High School due to experiences at Pleasant Valley, that they kind of wanted her to start with a fresh start. While she was there, she was in some special education or special classes that had integration. And parents and staff and faculty at Bettendorf saw improvement in Laura's behavior and her academics. So here's our case. Here's the parents' position, and then I'll share with you the school's position of what they're thinking. But initially, the parents did not know that they could request for special education services. They hadn't really given information to the school, especially regarding things that were happening at home, such as some of the hospitalizations or the overdoses or the threats and violence occurring at home. However, they thought they had some rights with Pleasant Valley Community School District regarding the information the school did have. So what they were requesting for from the courts is that they believe Laura is entitled to a compensatory education in the form of additional support services through early college for periods up to 3 years, so that they would compensate them for the time that they didn't serve her under special education when they could have been. They also wanted a reimbursement of about $11,000 for psychotherapy and a reimbursement of not quite $70,000 for costs of out-of-state residential treatments for Laura. So the school's position and the AEA's position is that they weren't aware of the problems that Laura was experiencing until long after they occurred. Discipline and attendance problems, they said, did not rise to a level that was unusual for some students. At that age, the parents never presented psychological reasons for her behavior at school. Laura was not identified as requiring special education because the parents never asked, is what they're saying. And by choosing mental health placement, they don't believe they need to pay for those services because students chose unilaterally to pay without any consultation with the school district. So they didn't involve the school district in this decision, so the school district shouldn't be responsible, is what they're saying. So let's kind of bring in some laws here. So based off of some U.S. code, the law is that all children with disabilities or thought of having disabilities have to have special education services or related services. And then under the Iowa Administrative Code, each AEA, in conjunction with the LEA, their job is to ensure early identification. So it's like that child search or child find of if there is any suspect of potential disability, it is their job to do the evaluation to make sure that all students with disabilities or suspected disabilities are being found and services can be provided to provide that free and appropriate education. So here's the case rulings of what was determined. So the court said, school, you failed to provide the screening, and that resulted in a denial of FAPE. So they did agree to the compensatory education order for 2 years. So Pleasant Valley does have to compensate parents and provide services for Laura for the time that they missed. Now, they ruled that, the school was not responsible to pay for psychotherapy or out of state residential treatment because of it really didn't have educational purposes, was its ruling. So my personal response is that ultimately, overall, I do agree with the court ruling. I believe the school did have some information. They saw the behaviors that was happening and seen incidences that were happening at school that should have led to a special education evaluation. You need to look beyond the behavior of what's happening, and this was reoccurring behavior, stuff going on with Laura, to see, okay, what is she communicating? What's going on? Why are these incidents happening, and why is it happening all of a sudden? I mean, it started right bang at second semester of her 9th grade. So what's going on? I also agree with the ruling that the school really doesn't have to pay for the psychotherapy or out-of-state residential treatment. Again, because it's not related to the academics, it's not related to the school setting. So I agree with that court ruling there. And my whole thing as I was reading this case study and reviewing, I was wondering, well, where is the communication? What happened? Why did the parents not feel comfortable to share the concerns with the school of what was going on with Laura? Was there poor relationships made? Were they afraid to confront or talk to the school? And why did no one talk to the parents about addressing the problem of what's really going on? It mentioned the only parent contact that was happening was just to report, hey, Laura's suspended for this many days because of this. That was it. There wasn't any problem solving, no discussion around the behavior of trying to figure out what was going on. So, as I'm thinking about implications for teachers and educators and administrators moving forward, a lot of it kind of goes with some we've already heard in case studies, but number one is document. As I'm reading these case hearings, it's a lot of, I don't recall whether this happened, or the associate principal saying, I don't recall this, or this was not communicated, I don't remember this being told. And it's documented. Put it in paper, put it in writing, document everything that happens and everything that occurs. And second, again, going back to communication with everybody. There was lack of communication between the parents, the teachers, the nurses, and the counselors and administrators to add on to that. There wasn't communication between hardly any of those people for everyone to come together and go, hey, let's figure out what's going on with Laura so we can help her. And then lastly is don't just discipline. It's not just about the discipline. Look at what is the reason behind the behavior. What is Laura communicating? What is she trying to tell those around her based off of these behaviors? What's going on so that we can really address the problem and just stop masking behaviors in the situation. So I want to leave you with a few questions. So first one is, have you ever been in a situation as a parent or as a teacher, either way, where there is a barrier in that relationship and communication? And if so, how did you handle this? Secondly was, how many of us have been in situations, or many of us have been in situations where a student's home or personal situation has been detrimental, has had a detrimental impact on their ability to be successful at school. So how did you approach this situation when kids were walking in the door with baggage? How did you overcome that? What were some strategies that you used? And then thirdly, I think a lot of us are seeing mental health becoming an ever-growing problem in our public school setting right now. And so I would love to hear, what are your schools, what are your districts doing right now to really confront this problem, to come together and support our students. So those are the 3 questions. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to reading your responses.